In marriage, the heart cries out. And often when the heart's crying out in one spouse, the other spouse is speaking responsibility. I need you to take care of the kids. I need you to take care of this. I need you to take care of that because we have all this stuff to do. We don't have time for your needs. The truth about marriage is every marriage is one breakthrough away from being a good relationship.
Okay, let me jump into this opening question. Why do we call it the midlife crisis? I don't feel like we've hit a crisis yet. Is it coming? Is it around the corner?
That is one of Bill's pet peeves. He's like, it doesn't have to be a crisis.
Oh, that's okay. So we're in agreement on that.
Oh, yeah. Midlife crisis markets well.
Yeah.
You know, if you say, hey, today we're going to talk about how to do normal life, everybody goes, is there something else on? But if you talk about the crisis, you talk about the difficulty, you talk about the disaster that's coming, everybody clues in. And if you don't know it's coming, it can become a crisis.
Okay, let me ask you this question. You know, when you look at husbands, how many of them see it as a crisis? And when you look at wives, how many of them see it as a crisis, as a rough percentage?
Yeah. I would say about half of them because, like Bill said, if you know that it's coming, then you invest well and you make smart decisions and it doesn't have to be a crisis. But most people just like fly through life and don't really think through life or prepare well. Like if they're not listening to Focus on the Family, they might not be ready. That's what I'm saying.
And everybody I know evaluates life at midlife. Okay. So you will evaluate.
Yes.
If you know it's coming and you're used to evaluating your life,
it's okay.
You can navigate it. If you're not used to it, you can throw your whole family topsy-turvy and then everybody's calling it a crisis.
But when you think of a crisis, you think of a breaking point potentially. A crisis seems to imply that. So why does this transition present this either make it or break it marriage situation? And have you seen that happen? Like people say, okay, we're done. Kids are out.
Yeah, and I think it's important when we talk about it that we separate out a women's midlife and men's midlife because they happen at different times.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we all know about the men's midlife crisis because it's gotten lots of attention. We don't talk much about the women's struggle.
And there's actually two for the women. The first midlife evaluation is what I call it. It happens between 28 and 35-ish.
Well, that seems young.
It is really young. And that's why it's not really a midlife. It surprises women. And so that's why it can become
What's
a crisis.
that sound like?
And so what it sounds like is, okay, why am I on the face of this earth? Like, is it just to like change diapers and do dishes and just to have a paycheck? And does anybody really appreciate me? It sounds like a little bit of an attitude. Sorry. And it is a kind of an evaluation of what is meaning to me and why am I on the face of this earth? And if a woman seeks God during that stage, it is a wonderful growth opportunity. She's like, here, God put me here. These are the gifts he gave me. This is how he wants me to use it. Woohoo! And it's all good.
Pam, let me ask you this. It's true for all of us. When we're confronted with biblical truth, sometimes we don't like it, and we are selfish people. And the Lord's going, please come this way, walk this way with me. It'll be so much easier. And we ignore it and we don't accept it. We don't accept that reflection in our own lives about where we're at and our attitude, like you just described.
Right.
How do you just say, okay, I'll relent. I'll give in, Lord. I'll do it your way.
Yeah, sometimes it's longer and it's more of a wrestling match. But sometimes it's shorter because it seems like an invitation from the bridegroom to the bride. Like, here I have this dance for you. I have this wonderful ministry I want you to do. You're so valuable. If we can see God in a positive view and answer his invitation, then life's second half from like 35 on is an exciting adventure.
Yeah. Let me read you a note that we got from a woman who was not happy in her marriage. And it kind of, I'm so grateful to the supporters of the ministry that we're here for this person. And this is multiplied many times over with all of the response that we get, which is great. And we want to hear from you because we want to help you get to a better place. But she said this, I feel like I made a mistake by marrying the man I did. We're not the same people we were when we got married. We want different things, have different morals and values. That'd be a big flag. And disagree on how to raise our kids. All we ever do anymore is fight. Am I supposed to continue on in this miserable relationship? Wow. This is what we're talking about. That's a woman speaking desperation about her life, her companion, her husband. How does that strike you, and what would you say to her?
Well, that is a really common malady, I guess we would call it, for women. And I think the red flag there is I'm miserable. And no, God doesn't want you to be miserable, but he doesn't want you to just opt out either. And so there is a happy in between. It's called like counseling, going to an intensive. Focus on Family has great intensives for
Hope
marriage.
Restored. We're there.
And so oftentimes it's just a little bit of investment. And, the studies say that women, when the kids launch, about 66% or more now are the ones that file for divorce. The women see the misery, and sometimes the men have just their head in the sand, and they're willing to go along and get along. But women want to do something about it. And so they do something about it. It doesn't have to be going to the lawyer. It can be going to counseling, even for yourself.
Yeah, let me ask you about that because, when I read that note, it's almost like she's looking for affirmation to get out.
Right.
Please tell me my feelings are right and that the best thing I could do is get out of this miserable relationship.
Yeah.
Again, I don't know why, other than our sin nature, we find that easier to do than putting in a little work into, maybe a lot of work into your relationship with your husband or wife, and that actually will pay off far greater than a divorce and bringing all your luggage or baggage into the next relationship.
And financially, a divorce can wipe you out, and emotionally, for your kids being on the stage of that, they can pay a big price. And so it's the time to step back and not only think of yourself, but think of the whole big picture. And one woman came to me when I was a director of women's ministry. She's like, I just want out of here. And it was the same kind of email, only it was verbally given. And I said, okay, well, before you go, how about we do this? We pray and ask God if he'll show you one positive thing about your spouse. She's like, all right. And I'm like, I'll meet you for coffee tomorrow and we'll see what he says. And so she did. She prayed, and I asked her the next day, and she's like, well, he's here. I said, all right, let's build on that. So we brainstormed as many ways as we could creatively, saying, it's nice to have you around. Oh, it's nice that some things in life don't change. She'd walk by and she'd see him sitting there with this, newspaper again, or the TV on, sports again. But she would just walk by and rub his shoulders or tap him on his leg or bring him just a word of affirmation. It's nice to have you around. And an amazing thing happened. A few days later, he got up out of the chair and he saw that she was reading her Bible. She's like, what are you reading, honey? And she said, well, this Psalms. And she read it. And he's like, well, that's pretty cool. And then the next Sunday, he was up dressed for church. And she's like, why are you here? She's like, he said, well, it's because you said it was nice for me to be around. And he wanted to be around even when she went to church.
Simple thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
so
amazing.
Just that simple, I call it the 100-to-1 principle. You take the one positive thing and put 100% of your energy there and just see what God might do for you.
Huh.
And I would add to that, the truth about marriage is every marriage is one breakthrough away from being a good relationship. Now, it often doesn't feel that way. But the Bible tells us clearly that marriage and the gospel are reflections of each other. And the way the gospel works is you go from being lost to being found in a moment. Mm-hmm. You go from being God's enemy to God's friend in a moment. And marriage can do the same thing. But prior to that breakthrough, it can feel very intense because we lose the language. Like in marriage, the heart cries out. And often when the heart's crying out in one spouse, the other spouse is speaking responsibility.
Yeah.
I need you to take care of the kids. I need you to take care of this. I need you to take care of this. Because we have all this stuff to do. We don't have time for your needs. And the other person is crying out. Early on, it's the wife crying out. Later on, it's the husband crying out. We miss the language, and then we miss the breakthrough.
That is really insightful. I want to come back to something you alluded to, Pam, especially for women, and that's that safe place. I don't want to give the sense that, if you call Focus or you talk to a counselor, that it's all about straightening you out. Right. You need a safe place to express your concerns, like that woman wrote. And
right,
said,
I was her safe place.
Yeah.
And then together we went before the Lord, and he became her safe place once again. She had to journey a bit. So I was just a guide. I basically just felt like I held the flashlight of God's word and just kept giving her a piece at a time. Because when you're in emotional turmoil, sometimes you can't handle a really huge amount of scripture, but one piece at a time, one day at a time.
And every relationship that's intimate, it needs both energy and compassion. And if a couple is upset with each other, they got a lot of energy working.
Yeah, it's not working in the same direction.
Right. If it can shift to being compassionate, like you can hear it even in this letter, there's a cry out, I want us to be unified in the way we raise kids. I want us to be unified in our morals. I want us to be unified in decision making. And if the two of them can discover compassion and build that together, all that energy starts working for them rather than against them.
And that's why oftentimes we encourage an intensive, because when couples are in midlife, it's super busy. Like everything's crashing down at the same time. Your kids are like tweens, teens, going to college, and there's all these expenses like cars and proms and graduations and weddings then eventually. And you both might be at a crescendo at your career. And so going to an intensive just 3 or 4 days, it gives you time to really listen to each other
And think about
and
it.
think about it and invest and learn some new skills. And yes.
Yeah. Bill, let me turn to you. Pam's done a great job describing that woman, her frustrations, etc. And maybe as part of the response here, expectations. I mean, what you're describing, like we're not on the same page with moral values or raising the kids, that suggests there is an expectation that may not have been expressed or expressed in a way that wasn't heard. And again, that's part of growing together, right? We end up with these expectations, and husbands, the joke is typically we're a little dense, we can't read your mind, and we don't really know. Sometimes you're saying it plainly and we still don't get it. So in that regard, Bill, maybe you can describe the husband that's usually working a lot, heads down. He doesn't look up for 20 years. He's just going. And trying to provide and doing those things.
Well,
and
there's this great moment that happens in a man's life when he realizes my life and my family is going to cost me a small fortune.
Yeah.
And it kicks him into gear.
Hopefully early.
Yes.
Yeah. And when that reality hits us, we go into high production.
And that happened to you.
Absolutely it did. Like I actually remember the day it happened to me. So we were living in San Diego. And we had built a home so that we could build roots in the San Diego area because the housing market was going crazy and I was on a pastor's salary. But we had a very handy church. So we built a home. And after a year of working on that, my goal was take a year off and recover.
Yeah.
Well, 2 months into that year, I drove home from work one day. And as I drove in the driveway, something flew over the windshield of my car. And I got out of the car, looked in the backyard, and my 2 boys are with a friend of theirs in our backyard with baseball bats, practicing their golf swing on my sprinkler heads. I had just enough mindset to say to the friend, "Go home right now, get out of here." And I told my boys, "Get in the house right now," because I was afraid of what I was going to say or do to them.
Yes.
And I went and counted the sprinkler heads. Started with 38. There were 14 left.
They're getting some good wax in.
And I was walking around the house saying, I'd rather have kids than sprinklers. I'd rather have kids than sprinklers. And I had to keep repeating myself because I wasn't sure.
I'm with you, man.
And I realized that day, wow, not only am I going to have to build my life, I'm going to have to rebuild my life because my kids are going to break everything I own. And as a man, you either go into production mode and say, okay, this is my family. That's what it takes. I'm going to do it. Or you get mad at everybody you love.
I don't mean to reduce this to brain chemistry, but you mentioned it in the book about fight or flight. There's probably a component of that. When we feel overwhelmed, we're looking at 2 doors, right?
Right.
Like, let's get with it door, step up and go. Or let's check out.
Yeah. And a lot of guys do. They just they look at it's too hard and they say, I don't have what it takes. But if a man says, yeah, I got what it takes, he will bury himself in responsibility.
You mentioned the male mentor and the significance of that. I've had a mentor, Steve, and he's been great. I probably have been talking with Steve regularly since 2005.
Okay.
So it's been a long time, and it's been really helpful. And he's not the pushover type. He hits me between the eyes when he needs to.
That's good.
And he's got this incredible ability to know when to do it.
Yeah.
Which, okay, good idea, Steve. Good thought, Steve. But speak to the importance of that.
Well, I was really aware as a young dad that I need to get a mentor because everything I'm facing is brand new. And I didn't have the kind of relationship with my dad where he filled me in or I could go talk to him. And so I realized I need to get a mentor. I'm going to make a big mistake. So I started meeting with Jim Conway, who was kind of a forerunner in this whole arena. And my goal was I want to learn how to be a pastor and I want to learn how to raise a family in a ministry context. And I figured Jim was a good option for that. And little did I know that he was going to shake up the train to keep me seeing what was going on. Because I had a conversation with him one day, and my question to him was, how do I get Pam to cooperate with me more on decision making?
I love that thinking.
Yeah, because we were in the press of life. We had our third child. I was pastoring a church. The kids were busy. We were busy. Stuff's flying at us at light speed. And I just figured if Pam was a little more cooperative
On your page.
yeah, then it would be easier.
I think that's true.
And Jim looked me in the eyes and said, do you need to control your wife?
Good word.
And my first reaction was, that's a horrible response because I'm not trying to control my wife. And then I realized, actually, if I could control her, life would be easier because I could stay in production mode. So I need to take this seriously. And I need to listen more to Pam. And I need to be more cooperative with her so that we can stay productive.
Yeah.
But it's a hard thing because a lot of times when I would stop and spend time with Pam, I was afraid I wasn't going to get stuff done. And if I don't get stuff done, then I'm not going to succeed. If I don't succeed, I'm not as much of a man as I thought I was. And it becomes a big identity thing for men. So men want to work hard because it makes us feel better about ourselves. And when we're stopping and we're taking care of the family and we're trusting God to give us the time back that we're investing in the people we love, that's not an easy road for men.
And when you mentioned mentors, and both men and women should have mentors, somebody who's just a little bit further on the road. And we also encourage couples to have a couple mentor, that you can hang out together.
I like that concept.
With them. Yeah. And in 10 Best Decisions a Couple Can Make, we talk about how to find those kind of couple mentors where both the husband and wife are available to build into your life. And for example, we look for a couple that have a life that we'd like to live. Do they have the kind of character? Do they have the kind of life pace that you're looking for? Well, how'd they get there? And you look for a couple that you might have something in common with. So you can, go golfing as you talk about your marriage, or you can, play pickleball nowadays, right?
That's big.
That's very big. And then look for a couple that's in your world somehow, maybe in your church, in your neighborhood, in your family circle. And then look for a couple that you admire their character, that they are something in their character that you'd like to learn, their relationship with God that you can learn from. And then lastly, look for a couple that's willing. They have to be willing to spend some time with you. And the easiest way to find that out is just say, hey, can we have coffee together? And ask them a few questions about their marriage and see where it goes. Would you like to have coffee next week? Would you like to have coffee once a month? And
yeah, that's really good.
And can I emphasize what Pam is saying? Because for the younger couples that are listening, if you walk up to a couple and you ask them, would you mentor us?
That's a little intimidating.
Most of them will probably say no.
Right.
Because they don't feel like they're qualified.
Right.
So if you can start soft, hey, can we have lunch together? Can we have coffee together? We have some questions we'd like to ask you and just learn from your experience. Most couples will say yes to that. And then if they succeed at that, they'll be willing to do it again. So set them up for success. Don't intimidate them right up front.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we've got details about marriage mentoring at our website. Greg and Aaron Smalley are passionate about this, and you'll find links there in the program description.
One of the things that I observe, that our counseling team observes in our marital relationships, perhaps even our own or a friend of ours, is, again, kind of that expectation idea. And we tend to, let me just speak personally. I will tend to not see my fault line in that. I see Gene's fault line very clearly. It's in neon, and let me tell you about it. No, but and that is the human condition. But again, how do we, Bill? How do we get the searchlight off of their problem and put it more on our issues?
And I think it's really wise for all of us to be asking what is the transition that's coming next. because I didn't know about this women's midlife thing that happens. And when it happened with Pam, I don't even refer to it as a midlife evaluation. I refer to it as the awakening. And when
Sounds like thunder.
Yeah, when it happens, it's scary to us men because it came on with lots of passion. Like Pam's desire to write books that would help women was just like on. And her desire to finish her education was on. And her desire to build a ministry that would encourage women just was on. And it looked so powerful to me. I thought if I say yes to this, it's going to run over our life and take over everything. And it scared me.
Yeah.
But I didn't say to Pam, this is really scary to me. Instead, I told her, I think your priorities are off. I think that you're planning too big. I think you're pushing too hard. Our kids are going to be affected. And I tried to reason with her to calm down the passion.
Yeah.
Which has worked exactly never.
But let's try it again.
Let's try it again. And rather than listening to the passion, saying, Pam, you gotta bring me up to speed on this because this looks too powerful and I'm a little scared by it.
Yeah.
Instead of saying that, I fought it.
Yeah.
And I tried to get her to calm down. I tried to get her to turn off the passion, which when God puts a passion in your wife's heart and you try to turn it down, it's not a good idea.
It was like a year-long argument.
Yeah, because I kept rescheduling with Pam. Next time we meet, I'm going to convince her.
Oh, that's
And
good.
The next time we met, I didn't convince her, so we had to pray again and reschedule again. And it was after the year that I realized the reason Pam can't calm this down is God put this passion on her heart.
Yeah.
So at that point, I'm like, I got a problem. I'm not going to win this argument with God. I got to get on track here.
Well, the observation of acknowledging this is something Pam's feeling from the Lord, right? But it does take us a while to figure that out, especially if we don't agree.
Yeah. But these transitions are normal.
Yeah.
Like about every 7 years, your marriage goes through a transition.
Yeah.
And if you're ready for it, it can awaken new things in your relationship.
Well, let me ask you this: again, we lean into perfecting button pushing, right?
Buttons must be pushed, Jim.
I don't
That's
know why
they're there.
we're so good at this, and maybe it's just me. I don't know. No, everybody's looking at me at the table like, okay, go ahead and spill the beans. But you become very perfecting of knowing just how to push that button of your spouse.
Yeah.
It could be a verbal response or a look or a whatever. And man, that well is deep. You can go there a lot.
Yeah.
But to your point earlier, it's like zero reward.
Right.
But we keep doing
We
it.
keep doing it.
When
Why
we
do we do
surrender,
this?
it's so much better. Like toward the end of that year, we were just like at our wits' end. We knelt down on by our sofa, and I prayed, Lord, I've just been trying to follow your call, but if there's something I'm not reading right, please correct me, change me, because Bill's not liking me right now. And then Bill prayed.
Yeah, my request was, God, I love this woman, but I don't like her right now. And if something needs to change, if something needs to change in her, change it. Something needs to change in me, change it. Because we just can't keep doing this anymore.
That's a wake-up call.
Yeah.
Jean said that to me a few years ago. She
Yeah.
goes, I love you. I just don't like you
Yeah.
right now. And I was like, how could you not like me? Not a very good response.
God didn't have
know.
a big answer right away. But the next day I was on campus and I had to stand up for my faith every day in this English class. And I asked Bill to pray. And he had to be up on campus filming. And so I said, would you pray when you walk by my classroom?
And I was looking for a way to tell Pam that my heart had shifted in a way that was believable. Because again, I fought her for a year on this thing. So if I went to her and went, Pam, I get it now. I'm kind of over it.
You're giving in.
It wouldn't have been realistic because I fought so hard for a year. And I know Pam likes public attention. So the thought hit me, okay, I'm going to be on campus. I'm just going to interrupt her class. So I bought a dozen roses. I walked into her classroom.
And the professor was teaching that romance was dead. It's just
my
an
goodness.
illusion. And Bill walks in with
Timing.
these roses. Yes.
So I gave her a kiss, said I love you, and walked out the door.
And the professor's like, what's going on here? Is it your birthday anniversary? I'm like, no. He's like, well, why'd he come in? I said, I think he just wanted me to know that he believes in me and he believes in the dreams that God has placed on my heart, like writing a book. And then all the women were like, so does he have a brother?
And I would say if your wife doesn't like public attention, this is not a good idea.
Yeah.
But it is Pam's language. And I would say to everybody, though, your recovery should be as big as your resistance.
Yes.
Let me ask this question. That spouse, could be husband or wife, is thinking, we're done. We just need to sign the papers. We can get it going. What word of advice would you have?
I would say take one more step. Because we're not talking here about, I'm changing my car, I'm changing the color that I like to wear.
It's bigger than they
We're talking about a
realize.
family.
Yeah.
We're talking about kids and grandkids that are affected. We're talking about generations that this impacts. It's worth another try. And we don't want to be unrealistic. We know there's some really tough situations out there. But there are a lot of situations that can be resolved with a few practical steps. And there's so much help in our world today that there's no reason not to take another step before you create years and years of complication and frustration for a lot of people.
And I would agree and echo that, in that instead of giving the lawyer all the money, all your money, take that same money and go on a trip down memory lane. Go to the place that you first fell in love. Go to the place that you had your first date. Go to the place you first kissed. Go to the place where you honeymooned and honeymoon there again.
I'm
and
ready.
take a
Let's
trip
go.
down memory lane.
I love that idea.
Well, that's Pam Farrell, and she and her husband Bill are our guests today on Focus on the Family with Jim Daly.
And they've written a great book, The 10 Best Decisions a Couple Can Make. Bring out the best in your relationship, and every married couple says amen.
Yeah, get a copy of the book and learn more about Bill and Pam at our website. We've got the link in the program description.
You're saying 10 best decisions. Just describe in the book. I mean, what are the one-word adjectives for some of those 10?
Well, the first thing I would say is the reason why decisions are so important is that our emotions follow our decisions. So couples who are good at making decisions together, they tend to harness the emotional energy of their relationship. And couples who are not good at deciding together, they create emotional chaos in their home.
Boy, that's so well put. That's exactly right.
So couples who learn to make decisions together keep themselves bonded emotionally.
So that's really the first decision. Decide to decide.
Yeah.
Not just let life happen to you and then decide to be positive. You can focus on the negative or you can focus on the positive of your mate and your kids. And if you focus on the positive, then you're going to get more enjoyment out of your relationship, and communicate with kindness and
Because
decide
you know how
to
it is
fight
when
fair.
responsibility hits, we start getting harsh in our communication.
Interesting.
You said you would do this, you didn't do it. I need you to do this. I need you to follow through. And now we're fighting over things that we love rather than working together.
Wow, interesting.
And decide that the we is greater than the me.
Yeah, turn the M upside down.
I
hadn't
like
thought about that till right now.
That's good. That's a meme.
You also use a term in the book, and you call it going berserk. I kind of like that one more.
Right.
It seems more colorful.
Right.
Yeah, when you go berserk in these situations, what do you mean by
It
that?
can be the midlife crush. That's another way to put it. Is a lot of times everything just comes to a crescendo, and you've got teens and tweens and college students, and you're releasing them, and you're paying for cars and kids and proms, and then your weddings, and then there's grandkids, and there's just a lot.
That's a long list.
Yeah, it is a long list. Plus, your
And-
careers are like at their peak, and everybody wants something from you. And like in the book, we talk about a man feels like a little bit like a vending machine. Everybody just wants something from him at all times.
Right. I want your money. I want your advice. I want your time. I want your skills. I
want
want
your
your
keys.
ability. I want your time. I mean, it just goes on and on. And while all that's happening, as men, our bodies are changing, and we're not used to it. Like as men, we go through puberty and we get this big testosterone rush, and we power through life for decades. And then we wake up one day and the testosterone level starts to drop.
We're a little tired.
And we feel tired, and we don't have as much hair as we used to have, and we just don't have the oomph that we used to have, but more is being demanded of us. And I know the thing I wish somebody had told me earlier on is that every 10 years, an adult doubles his responsibility level.
His or
So
her
at 30, you have
responsibility.
twice what you had at 20. At 40, you have 4 times what you had at 20. But it snuck up on us. So life is now just this berserk. We need to go, need to go, need to go, need to do, need to do, need to do. I need this, I need this, I need this. And if you have teenagers in the home, they're not very complimentary. So they're criticizing you as you're working really hard.
Duh.
Your wife is, yeah, exactly. Your wife is relying on you and wants you just to man up. And as a man, you're starting to ask the question, who cares about me? And the answer tends to come back, well, actually, nobody.
Well, and that shoe goes on either foot, the
It
husband
can.
or the wives, right?
Exactly.
I mean,
And
who cares
'cause-
about me? Mom's feeling that way too.
Right, because your family demands a lot at this stage of life. And so you can't be all about yourself. It's just impossible. And the other thing that's happening to a woman at the same stage is the perimenopause and menopause.
Let's just throw that in.
Right.
Yeah,
And
because that's fun.
I'm glad you said that, Pam.
there's over 100 symptoms
Wow.
in perimenopause and menopause, from, the hot flashes to anxiety.
If you don't grow through this, you will react and go berserk.
Well, I was going to say, what do you
Yeah.
do to focus on the right things and not the wrong things? Because it's all coming at you, and that's easy
Right.
to steal our focus about, okay, this is what we got to do with the kids, and you got to talk to them tomorrow, and this is what you need to say. And by the way, I got to be with my parents tomorrow because I got to take them to a doctor's appointment, and I don't think they've made their house payment this year,
Yeah, and you start blaming each other like,
Yeah.
it's your fault, it's your fault. Like, one day we were standing in the bedroom, and I'm like,
And-
life is
and-
like so stressful. What are you doing wrong, Bill?
And I'm like, I'm not doing anything wrong.
I'm like, well, I don't feel like I'm doing anything wrong either.
and we were looking for where to place blame.
Yeah.
And so in the middle of this argument, I said, Pam, it's not you. It's not me. It's just life.
And then I realized all that life was demanding of us, and I'm like, you are so right. It's not you. It's not me. It's just life.
But it's not what we want to do. What we want to say is it's not me and it's not life. It's just
you.
And we want to put blame somewhere.
right?
And
yeah.
if we can just get real about this and say, you know what, at some point, life does get overwhelming.
And so we use it as a code word. When would either one of us get irritated or overwhelmed, we'd say, just life.
The other aspect of that I like is it puts the focus on the marriage as being a team.
Yeah.
Yes.
We're working together. We're going to have this, onslaught of situations, but you need to be communicating. And you've
Yes.
mentioned that, but I guess I want to reinforce that.
But I would say that you don't just need to communicate during this time. You need to be on mission together.
And so,
Well, but that recognition, though, of anticipating together what that next
Right.
phase might look like. I love that idea.
Yes.
I don't know that Gene and I have done that very effectively, to say, okay, here we're leaving this phase and we're going into this phase, so let's brace ourselves.
Right. Well, and like one of the smartest things that looking back, Pam and I did, is when our kids became teenagers, we changed the way we parent. And we stopped saying no to our kids, and we replaced it with, tell me why I should say yes.
because we're rolling the ball into their court, making them be responsible.
And getting our kids involved with that to where they had to help with the decision making. Because sometimes going into it, we didn't know what the answer was. Mom and Dad, can we do this? Well, I don't know what that is, so the answer is no. Which, of course, is going to bring a reaction. But by getting our kids involved, two things happened. One, it gave us time to process, how do we want to respond to this? And it forced our kids to be more mature.
And so they followed Jesus, and they were stepped up to the plate, and they were responsible. And it took a lot of falling down over stupid things. Sometimes your teens will make mistakes, and it's okay, because that's how they learn to take responsibility for their own life, and that's really the goal. And so I think part of the reason that God has teens be a little bit irritating at times is you have to release them to go to college or be young adults and live on their own. And it would be so devastating if they're just so lovely and perfect all the time. So you're like,
Right.
yeah, go, we're ready.
Well, I'll tell you, the insight I've learned, Gene and I both, the more you try to control them as teens, the deeper that problem will
Yes.
become.
Yeah.
So you've got to learn how to let go.
And teenagers want you to decide so they can blame you if it doesn't work.
Yeah.
Because they're on a roller coaster ride, and they don't want to blame themselves. They want to blame you.
So they're sinners too?
They are.
Hey, let me ask you, because you mentioned this in the book, this idea of creating an oasis.
Yes.
I'm hearing all this. I'm going, let's get to the oasis part.
Yes, yeah.
So what does that look like?
It can be as simple as like making your master bedroom like a place you want to be together. So you have a place to escape from the busyness of like the rest of the household. But Bill and I also, it's a part of your schedule. And so we always take a sunset Selah or prayer walk together. And we've learned that, listen to like a Christian comedian on the way out and
that's
laugh
good.
together. And then on the way back, how can I pray for you? What's going on in our life? And we pray together. And doing that every day keeps you connected, and it makes it so that bricks don't build up the little foxes, as
Right.
songs
Scripture
talks about.
Yep.
You deal with those little foxes every day through prayer together, and it bonds you. Prayer is like a winner thing, especially a prayer walk, because you get closer to God, closer to your spouse, and thinner all at the same time. And at midlife, that's a win, man, to get thinner.
Yeah. At this age, you tend to begin, whatever that age is. I'm going to leave it nebulous.
Women of a certain age.
But you tend to make more stops at the doctor to say, this isn't working right. What can we do to fix this? And boy, this thing's not working right. Describe that moment in our lives when all of a sudden he's on speed dial.
Yeah, we were taking a walk one day, and I had just noticed like all of the pressure women were under at midlife, and I'd started a group in our church. Bill was a pastor, and called Seasoned Sisters. And so we gathered together because we thought the rest of life can be the best of life. And so Bill and I were on this prayer walk, and I'm like, isn't it great? Men are like waffles, like spaghettis on the bestseller list. And our kids are teenagers, but they're making good choices. And you're pastoring the largest church in town, and we just moved into this new building. I feel like our life is a beautiful hand-crocheted Afghan. And then it's as if somebody grabbed a hold of one string on that Afghan and began to unravel our life as we knew it. And how it hit was we were on a media tour like this,
Right.
and Bill was not feeling well, so we went to the doctor.
And I was pretty sure I had a sinus infection, so I went to go see the doctor. And at the visit, he said, "How long have you had high blood pressure?" I said, I don't have high blood pressure. He said, "You do today."
Yeah.
And it got my attention because it runs in my family.
Okay.
My grandfather died at 47, complications to high blood pressure. My dad had a stroke at 48
Left him
Okay.
paralyzed
because of
half
high
his
blood
body.
pressure.
Wow.
He lived to be 92, but the second half of his life was very different than the first half. So when this became a reality of my life, I kind of panicked. And at first I said, well, I'll go see my doctor when I get home. We'll fix this. Because that's what we do, right, guys? We just fix
I love
this.
just the look on your face I can relate to.
So the doctor said to Bill that Christmas when I went with him to that appointment, and he said, "Bill, you're a people helper, and you have been burning the candle at both ends. You're a full-time pastor, full-time writer, speaker, and your body is telling you what? What would you tell somebody if they came into your office with these, out of control blood pressure issues?"
And
Bill
I
said,
reluctantly said some significant life adjustments are in order.
and so Bill resigned his senior pastorate, which was very hard for a guy. And he did that because we looked at our life, and there's very few couples who can minister together. And we've always believed you should do what is unique to you. So together we decided that we would launch full-time into writing and speaking as our full-time gig. And then when you time everything out in midlife, it can really hit. And how it hit in our life is Bill resigned, and then right after that, one son was hit in a football game, had a concussion and a knee injury, might end that senior son's ability to get a college scholarship. The next night, our junior college son got hit in a football game, shoulder injury, quarterback, might end his opportunities. We're down to one income. We need college scholarships. And then the third day, I was away speaking because we needed groceries. And I got a phone call from my sister-in-law that my 40-year-old brother had just had a heart attack. Could I come take care of their kids? Other than that, Mrs. Lincoln had you like the theater. Who do you say
Right.
first? And
Wow.
so something on my face must have shown the stress. And so my friends would say, "How you doing?" And I started, I don't know how to answer this, God, too depressing. So I said, the Lord said, "What kind of person do you want to be?" I said, "I want to be the kind of person that can choose joy no matter what life sends your way, because the joy of the Lord is our strength. So I choose you, Jesus, I choose joy." So I started answering them, choosing joy, when they would say, "How you doing?" And what Bill and I discovered is that joy really is a strength to your life. That Bible is true. How about that? Yeah.
But we also learned you have to choose it
Yeah.
because
It's a
life doesn't
decision.
always set the table real well for it.
Yeah.
Well, and the phrase that's going through my head is joy is a decision.
It is.
But does that sound like you're avoiding something?
That people ask me that, but it's actually very real. And so it is a series of choices. Philippians is full of how do you choose joy, and joy is proactive. like make a list of things that always give you joy, and then put one of those every day so you have a joy moment.
Well, if you think about it, Paul's in prison and
Right.
he's basically reflecting that,
And
don't let
joy's-
your circumstances take a hold of you.
Exactly.
And joy's different than being happy. We weren't always happy during this. Like, there were some tough circumstances. There were some difficult things we had to work through. The joy comes from knowing God's going to bring something out of this that's worthwhile.
Right. It's reflective. And so as you start seeing answers to prayer, then I encourage people to keep track of it, because you gain an attitude of gratitude, and that helps you live longer and stronger.
And the things we value most in life come through the adversity that we overcome.
Together, especially.
Like, it's what sports is all about. Sports is about volunteering to go through adversity so you can win. And in life, the things you overcome together is what adds the most value to your life. And a life that's too easy, people get bored with. So that's where the joy came from for us. Is, yes, this is difficult, but we're going to overcome it together, and we're going to find out what God's going to raise out of it.
And, God did like some amazing things. Dr. David Jeremiah called Bill and said, hey, can you check out our small group ministry and design a small group ministry? And then he hired Bill to do that for 4 years. So God kind of stabilized our life and blessed us there, which is good that we had that little oasis as we released our last son right about the time that Bill's parents needed caregiving. Yeah.
When you talk about difficulties of life in theory, it sounds different than when you speak from your experience. And we have more compassion, we have more insight because of what we've been through than we would have if we just read it in a book. My parents were not easy. Like, growing up, I did not grow up in a strong, healthy, highly encouraging home.
Right.
I lived in a tough home. And when I realized God was asking me to start caretaking my parents, my first reaction was, God, you can't ask me to do this. It was too hard growing up there. You can't ask me to go back.
It's exactly where he's going to take you.
Yes.
I'm smiling because
It
I
is.
know.
Yeah.
And then I'm asking, how am I going to tell Pam about this? Like, moving close to my parents is not going to be good for our marriage. So I started praying, God, how are we going to do this? And one of the things I know about Pam that you wouldn't necessarily is Pam loves the water.
I'm like half mermaid.
Yeah. And so I got the idea, Pam, what do you think about moving onto a boat for this season of our life?
And no kidding, I said, #crazy fun midlife adventure. Let's do it.
And I knew there's a marina about 20 miles from my parents' house that has a pool and a jacuzzi.
That's kind of what you're praying for, right?
Exactly.
She's just cutting right to the quick. Let me ask you about conflict in every marriage. And you say all great relationships are made up of two committed forgivers.
Yes.
I like that. Speak to that. Committed forgivers.
So every marriage, if you're fully involved in your marriage, you will have conflict because you married somebody who has what you don't have. So Pam has all the creativity that our family needs. She has the spontaneity that our family
All
needs.
those frustrating things.
She has the social mandate that our family needs, which during easy times, that's really fun. But when the pressure's on, those things become interruptions. So if you're a normal couple, you are going to have conflict. And at times you blurt out things you shouldn't say. You do things that are not helpful to the relationship. And you may even bring baggage from your past and dump it on your spouse. And if you don't know how to forgive all of that when it happens, then you just carry grudges. And the more grudges you carry, the heavier the load gets. And if the load gets heavy enough, you're going to think it's hopeless. And Colossians 3:13 is really fascinating.
Which says?
Which says, bear with one another and forgive whatever grievances you have against one another. Forgive as the Lord forgave you. And when I read that passage, I went, we're supposed to forgive everybody for everything. And that was a real challenge for Pam and I, because when we first read that verse, we thought, I've got a list of people that I don't think really deserve forgiveness, because what they've done is really bad.
Right.
And I'm the firstborn daughter of an alcoholic dad, a lot of domestic violence in my home. So there's a list on my side.
Yeah.
So I started asking, well, how do we do this? Because I agreed, okay, I need to forgive. I need to forgive my mom first. I'm going to have to forgive Pam along the way because she's as imperfect as I am. She's going to have to forgive me along the way. So how do we do this? And I took the gospel of Jesus Christ and I said, if we apply that to interpersonal relationships, what would it look like? And it turned into 6 statements of forgiveness that have turned into a working definition for us. So anytime I need to forgive Pam or anybody else, I work through these 6 statements. And it helps, it just puts handles on it. And very quickly, those statements are, I forgive, and I name the person for whatever it is that they've done.
So real specific.
Real specific. Because, like, I don't forgive Pam for being spontaneous, because that's too big and broad. But the decision she just made to spend money that we didn't talk about, I can forgive her for that specific thing. And then I admit that what happened was wrong. Because if it isn't something that's wrong, forgiveness isn't the answer.
It's just your bad attitude.
And sometimes we're in conflict over attitudes, and we just need to grow up.
And the Bible is like a plumb line from heaven, and God will show us whether this is an offense to forgive or whether it's an attitude that he can help adjust in our life.
Yeah.
The third is, I don't expect this person to make up for what he or she has done. Because if you expect them to make up for it, you're putting forgiveness on hold until they take action. And it'll roll around in your heart and produce bitterness. Now, to make things right, there's going to have to be some movement. But for me to forgive, they don't have to do anything. And the fourth one is, I won't define this person by what he or she has done. Because we too often use people's mistakes to define who they are.
Well, especially spouses.
Yeah, and we turn them into monsters, or we turn them into very unattractive people rather than just let them be people. And the way Jesus defines all of us is we're all in desperate need of God's grace. If you don't know Jesus as your personal Savior, you desperately need his grace for eternal life. And if you do know Jesus, you desperately need his grace for everyday living. And anybody who gets away from the grace of God does ugly things. So we want to define people the way God defines people. And then I won't manipulate this person with what he or she has done. And, in marriage, manipulation is just, it kills the relationship.
Oh, yeah.
And so choosing not to manipulate is part of the forgiveness process. And I think the most important statement is, I will not allow what's happened to stop my personal growth. 2 Peter 3:18 says, grow in the grace and knowledge of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. And bitterness stunts growth. So people who don't forgive, they become less mature. And then
Isn't that
life
interesting?
overwhelms them because they're not as mature as they could be.
All the way back to the vine.
Yeah.
Yeah, those little foxes are eating away at
Exactly.
the roots. And that
Exactly.
that matters in your marriage and your personal growth in Christ.
And couples who are good at forgiving tend to stay in love because we both recognize we're imperfect. And if we have a way of forgiving, we can be imperfect and still be a team.
Well, you've hit the nail on the head today. I mean, again, the 10 best decisions a couple can make, bring out the best in your relationship. Every married couple should be saying, yes, I want that.
Of course, we think that, Jim.
Yeah, and some days you're going, okay, we're doing pretty good. We're batting 900. We're almost there. 9 out of 10 times we're getting it. And other days you're going, okay, I got one hit out of 10 at-bats.
And I would just say to every couple out there, enjoy the season you're in and start preparing for the next one.
And choose joy.
And choose joy.
I
All
love
along
that.
the way.
Well,
Invest in your love relationship. Remember the oasis. Make it an oasis.
yeah, no, that's all good. It doesn't mean you have to buy a boat, though, right?
That's a nice oasis.
All right. Thank you guys for being with us. This has been great content. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And, for you to get a copy of this, that's what I would do. Gene and I are going to start reading this.
Good
and,
idea.
just apply those principles. And you can get a hold of this for a donation of any amount. If it can be monthly, that's great. One-time gift, that's great. If you can't afford it, we believe in the content. We'll get it to you and trust others will cover the cost of that. So just get in touch with us. We have so many helps here at Focus on the Family. I hope spiritually proud of these things that we're doing Hope Restored, the marriage intensives. If you're in that spot where you need some strong work in your marriage, call us. Get more information about Hope Restored. Marriage mentoring is available, and we'll help you get on board with that and help train you a bit even. And so much more. Just get in touch with us.
Yeah, help is a phone call away. A lot of resources here. Our number is 800, the letter A and the word family. 800-232-6459, or stop by the program description for all the details. And thanks for joining us today for Focus on the Family with Jim Daly. I'm John Fuller, inviting you back next time as we once again help you and your family thrive in Christ.